You shelter in a cave during a rainstorm and spend the idle hours twisting plant fibers into rope and grinding ochre for cave walls. You fill this forced downtime by inventing string and sharing survival stories around a fire. Stomach cramps hit you after 2 full days without any food. You followed fresh animal prints through the dense brush and located the herd. You memorized every turn of the trail to reach them. A violent storm hits with heavy wind-driven rain. The freezing downpour batters you through the afternoon, continues all night and falls the next morning. Rising mud and deep, muddy puddles erase the tracks and force you to abandon the hunt. Wet soil and slick rocky terrain threaten your bare feet with every step. A single slip causes a twisted ankle, and an injured ankle brings certain death in the wild. Floodwaters swell in the river next to your camp. Damp wood chokes your campfire. That flickering flame provides your only warmth and keeps hungry predators at bay. You feel trapped in the wet brush, experiencing pure dread and forgetting boredom. Heavy rain created survival crises for early humans, leaving zero room for minor annoyances. The specific innovations our ancestors developed to survive these brutal storms shaped human progress beyond their daily routines under clear skies. You shut the window and brew hot coffee as rain taps the glass today. You close the blinds to block out the gray sky. You pull a thick blanket over your lap and start a Netflix show. You press your body into the soft couch cushions until you find the perfect groove. The rain creates peaceful background noise that puts you to sleep before the first episode ends. That identical drumming sound meant a death sentence for your ancestors 50,000 years ago. A storm brought three distinct lethal threats before the clouds cleared. Water exposure strips body heat 25 times faster from a soaked person compared to a dry one. Severe shivering accelerated this dangerous heat loss process. A prolonged downpour at temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit dropped your core body temperature into the fatal hypothermia zone within hours without proper insulating clothes or a waterproof roof. Nighttime temperatures plummeted to those dangerous levels across most ancient global habitats. High-elevation African regions experienced these exact freezing conditions during their seasonal wet periods. Flash floods presented the second massive environmental danger. Early humans built their camps at the bottom of steep hillsides or adjacent to active riverbanks. Torrential downpours turned those low-lying locations into deadly water traps. Rushing water swept away essential tools and stored food supplies. Researchers dig up thick layers of wet flood sediment inside ancient rock shelters today. That mud washed in while families occupied the space. The survivors abandoned the sites after massive sediment deposits filled their living areas. Apex predators created the third and worst biological hazard. Heavy rain forced hungry wild animals to seek dry refuge inside the exact same caves humans used to sleep at night. Both species fought fierce territorial battles in the dark while seeking shelter. Excavations in South Africa reveal ancient human bones resting adjacent to big cat skeletons in identical soil layers. Several unearthed early human skulls feature deep puncture wounds. Those specific holes match the shape and spacing of leopard teeth. Rain drove humans, prey, and predators into tight, rocky refuges. You share those small, dry caves with the exact animals hunting you. You reduce your daily survival to one critical task. You must keep the campfire burning. Letting those warm embers die leaves you trapped in the pitch black with hungry beasts. Those dying embers force you to confront a huge problem if you lack the ability to build a new flame from scratch. Before 40,000 years ago, researchers debate whether humans could start fires on demand with any consistency. Archaeologists found evidence of controlled fire use stretching back at least 400,000 years at Qusum Cave in Israel. Some experts push that timeline back a full million years at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. Keeping a blaze alive demands different abilities than striking rocks against each other and coaxing tiny sparks into roaring flames. Most humans lacked the second skill throughout tens of thousands of years of early history. A dead fire meant you had to walk to another camp and beg for a live coal. Early groups solved this problem by carrying smoldering embers wrapped in fresh green leaves. Others packed hot coals inside tinder fungus. This woody mushroom catches sparks and smolders for hours without burning out. The natural container worked as a portable fire starter that you could carry in your pocket. The practice persisted for millennia across different cultures. Researchers discovered Otzi the Iceman frozen in the Alps after 5,300 years. His leather belt pouch held a complete fire-making kit containing tinder fungus, flint, iron pyrite for striking sparks, and extra plant tinder for emergencies. 5,000 years ago, people treated fire preservation as such a priority that they built specialized gear to protect their flames. Early humans prioritized their flames over building a roof during a sudden downpour. They dragged the glowing embers to the back of the cave and blocked the wind with heavy animal hides and thick brush. The fire tender added fuel in precise amounts to keep the blaze steady. Foragers gathered dead lower branches from coniferous trees, relying on the thick forest canopy above to shield these bottom limbs from the rain. They cracked soaked logs with stone tools to harvest the dry heartwood hidden within the wood. The group relied on birch bark for kindling because the material contains a natural chemical called bitumen. Bitumen enables the bark to ignite while wet. One tribe member sat for hours by the hearth during a heavy storm to feed the flames and block the damp air. The central fire provided physical warmth, bright light, predator protection, hot meals, and a gathering spot for the community. Losing the fire brought fatal consequences for the entire group. You secure the flames and stay dry, yet the storm traps you inside your shelter. You build things. Archaeologists find clear proof of this ancient behavior. Caves and rock shelters hold abundant physical manufacturing evidence. Excavators uncover stone tools in every production stage. Piles of flaking debris sit concentrated in specific cave areas. These tiny rock chips fly off when a person shapes a tool. The debris piles mark the exact locations where early humans sat near firelight to work for hours. These ancestors also processed pigments. Excavators at Blombos Cave in South Africa uncovered a 100,000-year-old ochre processing workshop. The ancient workers used abalone shells as mixing bowls. They ground ochre into powder. They used bone tools to stir and apply the mixture. The workers operated a deliberate, organized production system. A person sat inside that cave, listening to the steady rain pound outside, and manufactured pigment on purpose using a strict, specific method. Bone needles also surface in the archaeological record. These artifacts first appear around 61,000 years ago in South Africa and later spread across Europe and Asia. Crafters shaped these delicate, precise tools with tiny drilled eyes. Making a bone needle requires a person sitting still and focused for hours. Running from predators leaves zero time for such detailed work. Rainy days provided our ancestors with those exact spare hours. Ancient humans filling those idle hours left behind evidence at the French site Abri du Marais. Experts date this fragment back 5,200 years. Researchers consider this thread the oldest proof of string. Crews found an older artifact inside Hollowfels Cave in Germany. A craftsman carved a mammoth ivory tool 35,000 years ago. The ivory has 4 holes and spiral grooves. The artisan shaped those grooves to twist fibers into rope. A worker sat inside that cave and whittled a dedicated rope-making device. Workers twisting fibers need time and repetition. A person needs focus to finish the job. Cave dwellers used rainy afternoons to finish this tedious work. Humans used this cordage to change their survival. You could lash wooden poles to construct shelters. Hunters used the material to weave snares. Woodworkers wrapped the fibers to attach stone blades to handles. Builders rely on twisted fibers to construct technology. The first person to twist those plants together did it while watching a downpour outside. While that rain poured past the cave entrance, the person twisting fibers together also started improving the cold stone floor they slept on. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, archaeologists uncovered 77,000-year-old sleeping mats built from stacked layers of sedges, rushes, and grasses. The top layer featured Cape laurel leaves, a plant that repels insects on contact. These cave dwellers treated their sleeping quarters like a proper home. They dragged the old mats out, burned them to ash, and laid fresh plant material on a regular rotation to fight off bugs and grime. Humans invented pest control tens of thousands of years before anyone bottled a spray. Those twisted fibers solved one problem. The ground you slept on posed the next. Inside Sibudu Cave in South Africa, archaeologists pulled up compressed plant layers dating back 77,000 years. Sedges, rushes, and grasses formed stacked sleeping mats. Cape laurel leaves covered the top surface, a plant that repels insects on contact. Whoever gathered those leaves understood their purpose. The person arranging those mats each evening treated that cave floor like a bedroom. They burned the old bedding and laid fresh layers to kill parasites. 77,000 years before hardware stores stocked bug spray, a human in a South African cave ran pest control. Early humans used woven rope, grass bedding, and napped stone tools to solve immediate physical problems. They shifted their focus to a new pursuit and started making art. These ancient people left 36,000-year-old images of lions, horses, rhinos, and bears in the Chauvet Cave of southern France. The artists applied immense technical skill and sharp observation to capture these massive beasts. These ancient painters grasped anatomy and visual perspective. They painted massive animals mid-stride with tensed leg muscles and turning heads. Painters spent thousands of hours watching local wildlife graze and migrate across the plains to achieve such accurate depictions. The painters recreated those precise memories in subterranean chambers using flickering firelight. Artists at Lascaux, Altamira, and Sulawesi in Indonesia share this legacy. Researchers date Indonesian cave paintings back at least 45,000 years, securing their title as the oldest known figurative art globally. Early humans painted away from the cave entrances used for basic daily shelter. They ventured hundreds of meters into the earth, squeezing through tight limestone passages and crawling into hidden chambers to work. Individuals carried shallow limestone lamps fueled by rendered animal fat into pitch-black environments to apply red ochre and charcoal pigment to the damp rock walls. People avoid crawling into dark caverns during sunny days with abundant hunting opportunities. They undertake these difficult journeys during prolonged bad weather. People stay indoors during a continuous 2-day rainstorm after they finish sharpening every available flint tool and repairing their leather gear. The artists push themselves into the lightless zones to create images. Archaeologists lack absolute proof linking cave art creation to rainy days, yet the underlying logic makes perfect sense. Early humans produced their largest creative explosion in geographic regions, featuring heavy rainfall and harsh winters that kept people indoors for extended periods. Anthropologists connect this pattern to an even larger concept regarding the evolution of human culture. Heavy rains force bands of 15 to 30 people into tight, shared spaces for extended periods. This confinement eliminates work and demands interaction. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner captured this shift in a 2014 study of the Jew/Honsi Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert. She recorded a distinct split in communication styles based on the sun's position. Daylight hours restricted talk to immediate logistics like land disputes, resource gathering, and personal complaints. The group shifted gears as darkness fell. With everyone gathered around the hearth, over 80% of the conversation transformed into songs, ceremonies, and complex narratives. The firelight altered the mood. The warm glow softened facial expressions and dissolved daytime tensions, creating a safe environment for deep connection. This hearth served as humanity's first social network. The knowledge shared around the fire carried life-or-death weight. Speakers avoided idle gossip. They mapped out drying water sources for the coming summer and identified edible versus toxic plants. They shared the locations of prime flint quarries and detailed the tracking habits of elusive prey. This verbal transfer ensured the tribe's survival. The dialogue eventually transcended practical skills. The group began inventing explanations for the storm itself. They crafted myths to make sense of the falling water. Almost every culture possesses these rain stories, and the original storytellers likely composed them while sitting in the very damp conditions they were trying to describe. Australian Aboriginal communities hold the record for the oldest spoken histories on Earth with geological proof. Their elders memorized specific coastal floods that rising oceans created 7 millennia before the present. Modern geologists confirmed these exact sea level shifts occurred. The tribes kept these precise geographical details alive for 70 centuries through pure conversation. People build such an unbroken cultural memory by spending countless hours in close physical proximity. Group members gathered in large crowds to repeat the same narratives in endless cycles. Families used wet weather to schedule this intensive educational marathon. They remained in their shelters during storms and converted idle hours into active learning sessions. Older members instructed the youth through physical demonstrations of survival skills. The tribe solidified its collective history while weaving fresh experiences into the group archive. You might view a downpour as a survival hindrance. Early humans saw the storm as a massive opportunity. A heavy shower turns the earth soft. This loose dirt creates perfect footprints. You read deep, clear, detailed impressions in the mud. You identify the exact animal species, estimate the exact time they passed, calculate their specific speed, and trace their final path through the brush. Hunters consider the moments after a storm to provide the best tracking conditions on Earth. Foragers collected crucial drinking water from the heavy storm. Early hominins collected and stored these fresh drops. You spot natural rock basins filling with clean water near most known prehistoric campsites. Early humans carved these shallow stone depressions deeper to hold extra liquid. Foragers gathered extra food following the wet weather. Wild mushrooms and specific edible plants sprout in massive numbers from the ground after a heavy storm. You pull large tubers from the wet soil with minimal physical effort. Insects crawl from the dirt. Foragers embrace the transformed local menu and maintain their food supply. Tribes grasping these ecological shifts gained a massive survival edge over rival bands. Termite swarms offer a great example of this shift. These insects flood the air after a tropical African storm. You harvest these protein-dense insects using your bare hands. You eat handfuls of the most nutritious food available while leaving your crafted tools behind. Modern wild chimpanzees gorge on these massive swarms after a sudden downpour. Early human ancestors consumed these exact insects on a massive scale. After filling their bellies with those bugs during a downpour, early humans tackled the tasks that kept them alive. They fed the central flames with dry wood. They carved stone weapons for the upcoming hunt. They stitched thick animal hides to block the winter chill. They braided plant fibers to secure their temporary tents. They crushed colored rocks to paint beasts on deep cavern ceilings. They spoke tales to teach vital survival tricks to their children. The bright sun broke through the gray storm clouds. The group stepped out onto the soft, damp earth. They spotted fresh animal footprints in the wet mud and resumed their daily chores. They stayed indoors during the heavy storm but gained a clear advantage. They used those trapped hours to build gear for the upcoming days. Early humans created the weapons, the garments, the oral histories, and the subterranean art during forced rest. They sat inside a dark rocky overhang next to the warm hearth with time to plan. Modern people feel restless when stuck inside. Our ancestors faced a harsh environment. A person huddled in a damp cavern listening to the downpour needed to craft useful items before the water stopped. Humans developed ingenuity while facing the intense weather. Our species survived until today because of that inventive drive.